Hi. Today on Getting Started, I'm going to go over how to style your HTML page using CSS. And I simply want to go over how do you specify which tags or which sections on your HTML page do you want to style using CSS selectors. So I'm going to start on repl, and you can see I already have a very simple outline with a couple of different sections on it. And let's get started. Can I move my, look at this, I'm on the other side now. Okay, cool. So here I have a heading, a subheading, a paragraph, blah, blah, blah. Let's say I want a different font for this entire thing because I hate the default. So that's where I'm going to get started. And because I want to select everything in this HTML tag, I have two choices. I can either select the HTML tag or the body tag. And I'm going to use body because this is a little bit more specific. So in my CSS file, I'm going to tag the entire body, and I'm going to do that by simply taking the name of the HTML tag and printing it on my CSS file. And I'm going to open curly brackets, and then inside these brackets, I'm going to use key value pairs. And so I want to simply change the font to Arial, and I can do that by selecting the font family key. And this font family is specific to CSS. So if you go to the CSS page, you can, and I'll leave a link down here, you can see all the different options that you have for styling. And then the options within changing the font are here. And ta-da, all of our font changes. So the next thing I want to do is select the heading, and I want to center it, give it a different background and size. So the way I'm going to do that is simply by, again, taking the name of the HTML tag, H1, and I can copy it over into my CSS file and starting a whole new selector. I want to go over something real quick. So the H1 right here is the CSS selector. You open that up by using the curly brackets. Thing on the left, the key, is going to be what you're changing. And then value on the right is going to be what you're styling it to. So all of line 6 is called a key value pair. And you can add multiple. You just have to make sure to finish each pair with a semicolon. Otherwise, you'll get an error. And I'm going to run it, and you can see that's exactly what I wanted. Two final things I wanted to go over is how do I specify one item within a list, or let's say you have multiple paragraphs and you want to change the style of only one of those paragraphs. There's two ways to do that. I added 2 more paragraphs just so we can test this out. So if I run the code just like this, then every single paragraph is going to have that red border because in our CSS file, we specified P, and it's going to listen for all of the paragraphs in the HTML file. So let's say I wanted to change only the middle one to have a green border and a black background. I have 2 ways to do this. One is by giving it a class. Now in our CSS file, if I want to specify a class, all I have to do is start with a dot and then the class name, which I said different. And then from there on out, it's the same format. So when I run it, then you can see the other 2 paragraphs contain their red border, but because I've singled out the middle one, then it gets changed. So remember, for classes, you want to use a dot and then the name of the class. For the second way to change a specific item, then I can use an ID. Okay, so in order to select an ID versus a class, then I need to use a # with the name of the ID. And I'm going to run that, and you'll see it will change to an absolutely unreadable text. But yeah, so that's how you single out one thing if you have multiple of that within your HTML. One last thing I wanted to go over before finishing up is how do I access the list items? So notice how the list items are nested within this UL. I need to be able to access that. I want to say UL li and run it, and it should get rid of those dots for every single one of those list items. One last thing I wanted to go over is margin and padding, and I'm going to test that using the footer. Here's what's going to happen. The best way to explain padding and margin, in my opinion, is to open this page in a new tab and then opening up the Chrome DevTools. And so that's what I did. I open it in a new tab using this button. Once you're on that page, you want to either go to View, Developer, Inspect Elements. On my Mac, I use Command-Alt-I. If you go on this tab Elements and kind of hover each of the elements in your HTML, then you can see it on the page. It highlights. Oh, that's cool. It highlights over my face. But an easier way, if you know what you want to highlight, on the DevTools, then you use this little arrow and then point to whichever element you want to see. And so here I'm pointing at the footer. I'm going to click on it and I can either hover it. So the green shows the padding and the orange shows the margin. And if you scroll down over on the right side of this, you can see the padding, the border is 1, that black border, and then the margin is in orange. I think that covers it all. There are a bunch of different ways that you can style the page. These are just a couple of the most common ones, I believe. So if you have any questions or if this was helpful or not helpful, let me know. Cool. Bye.